In this episode, we're going to shift from day-to-day alert handling into a mindset that is just as important for ASOC, but often less visible until something goes wrong. Preparing for incident response so that a real incident does not turn into confusion, delay, and avoidable damage. Brand new learners sometimes picture incident response as a dramatic technical chase, but the most important work often happens before the incident begins, in the form of readiness decisions that make later actions fast and coordinated. Preparation is what determines whether your team can quickly answer basic questions like what happened, who has authority to decide, what evidence is trustworthy, and what steps are safe to take without breaking business operations. It also determines whether you can work under pressure without improvising communication and access in the worst possible moment. The exam expects you to understand this readiness layer because SOC operations are not only about detecting and triaging alerts, but also about being able to transition smoothly into structured response when a situation crosses the line into an incident. By the end, you should be able to explain the readiness steps that prevent chaos later and why each step reduces time, errors, and organizational friction. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful way to define readiness is that it is the set of conditions that must already be true for incident response to work, because you cannot build those conditions in the middle of an emergency. One condition is clarity about what counts as an incident, because if people disagree about the definition, they will argue while the attacker continues. Another condition is clarity about roles and authority, because decisions like isolating systems or disabling accounts affect the business and must be owned by the right people. Another condition is technical access, because investigations require logs, telemetry, and tools that analysts cannot request and wait for while the clock is ticking. Another condition is evidence integrity, because if evidence is incomplete or untrustworthy, the team will chase false narratives and waste time. Another condition is communication channels, because incidents are coordination problems as much as technical problems, and coordination fails when messaging is improvised. Each condition is a readiness goal, and the readiness steps you take are simply actions that make those conditions reliably true. For beginners, it helps to see readiness as building a stable stage for response, so that when an incident begins, the team can perform rather than scramble. One of the most important readiness steps is establishing clear escalation criteria, because the SOC must know when an alert is no longer just a routine triage item and has become an incident that requires broader coordination. Escalation criteria often combine evidence strength with business impact, such as confirmed compromise of a privileged account, confirmed malicious execution on a critical system, or evidence of sensitive data exposure. The criteria do not need to be complicated, but they do need to be shared and repeatable, because inconsistency creates delay and disagreement. Clear criteria also protect the business from unnecessary disruption, because they prevent over-escalation of noisy alerts into full incident mode. At the same time, they prevent under-escalation, where people keep investigating quietly while the attacker spreads. Readiness includes making sure analysts know the threshold for escalation, know who to contact, and know what information must be captured before the handoff. When escalation is designed rather than improvised, the transition into incident response becomes faster and calmer. Another readiness step is building an incident response contact and decision map, because incidents require coordination across technical and business leadership. A decision map clarifies who has authority to approve containment actions, who owns critical systems, who handles external communication, and who coordinates overall incident management. Without this map, the SOC can detect and confirm an incident, yet still lose time trying to find the right person to approve actions. That time loss is not trivial, because attackers take advantage of delay and confusion. A contact map also reduces duplicate messaging, because people know where to send updates and how to avoid broadcasting sensitive details to inappropriate channels. For beginners, it is important to understand that incident response decisions can affect revenue, customer trust, and operational continuity, which is why decision authority cannot be assumed. Readiness means you have already answered the question of who decides, so the team can focus on what happened and what to do next. This preparation step is one of the most powerful ways to prevent chaos. Technical readiness begins with evidence availability, because response depends on being able to reconstruct activity quickly and accurately. Evidence availability means that the right telemetry is being collected, retained long enough for investigation, and searchable when needed, which connects directly to your earlier episodes on data sources and enrichment. It also means that evidence can be accessed by the people who need it without delay, and that access is controlled so that sensitive logs are not exposed widely. If logs exist, but analysts cannot reach them, or if retention is too short, response becomes guesswork. If evidence is too noisy or lacks context, investigations become slow, and slow investigations increase impact. Readiness also includes knowing where evidence lives, because different sources may be stored in different places, and an incident is not the time to discover that the authentication logs and endpoint logs are in separate islands with no shared identifiers. A prepared SOC can quickly pivot across identity, endpoint, network, and application evidence because the pipeline and enrichment were designed with investigation in mind. For beginners, the main lesson is that evidence is not just collected for detection, but for rapid truth-finding when incidents occur. Evidence handling and integrity are another readiness pillar, because incident response often depends on being able to trust that the evidence has not been altered and can be used to support decisions confidently. Integrity concerns arise because attackers may try to delete logs, modify records, or disable telemetry to hide their activity. A readiness step is ensuring key logs are forwarded off the systems being monitored, reducing the attacker's ability to erase history. Another step is ensuring that the monitoring pipeline itself is monitored, so the team can detect when sources go silent or when event fields break due to changes. Integrity also includes controlling who can change detection rules, who can change retention settings, and who can change enrichment mappings, because those changes can alter what evidence exists. For beginners, it helps to think of evidence like a timeline you will need later, and timeline reliability depends on consistent timestamps and consistent identifiers. If time drift exists across systems, the story becomes hard to reconstruct, and the team can misinterpret cause and effect. Readiness steps that protect integrity reduce the chance of being misled during the most stressful moments. Tooling readiness is another important area, but the key is not having a large toolbox. It is having reliable access to the essentials. Essentials include the ability to search and correlate logs, the ability to view endpoint and identity activity, and the ability to create and track cases with clear documentation. Readiness includes confirming that these tools are available when needed, that access works for the right roles, and that permissions align with least privilege. It also includes preparing for outages, because incidents sometimes coincide with system instability, and a response plan that depends on a single fragile platform can fail at the worst time. Another readiness step is ensuring that analysts know how to use the tools in a consistent way, such as how to pivot from an alert to related evidence and how to document key findings. Training matters here because a tool that exists but is unfamiliar will not help under pressure. For beginners, the takeaway is that readiness is about reliability and practiced use, not about collecting more tools. A smaller set of well-integrated, well-understood tools often supports better response than a sprawling set of poorly understood capabilities. Communication readiness is a major chaos preventer because incidents create confusion, and confusion spreads when people do not know what to say, when to say it, and to whom. Readiness includes defining internal communication channels for incident updates, ensuring sensitive details are shared only with the right groups, and defining the cadence of updates so people do not demand constant ad hoc reporting. It also includes defining what information should be captured early, such as the time the incident was recognized, the initial scope, and the immediate risks, because those facts form the early narrative that guides later decisions. Communication readiness also includes avoiding assumptions, because early incident information is often incomplete, and careless wording can mislead leadership or cause unnecessary panic. For beginners, it is important to recognize that communication is part of containment, because coordinated action depends on shared understanding. When communication is chaotic, teams can take conflicting actions, such as one team restoring a system while another tries to preserve evidence, which can destroy investigative clarity. Readiness steps that standardize communication reduce friction and protect both response speed and evidence quality. Another readiness step that prevents chaos later is establishing clear documentation expectations and case structure before the incident begins. During an incident, people are busy, stress is high, and memories are unreliable, so the documentation structure must be easy and familiar. Documentation should capture what was observed, what was confirmed, what actions were taken, and why those actions were approved, because these details support accountability and learning later. It should also capture the evolving scope, because incidents rarely have a fixed boundary at the start, and the team must track what systems and identities are involved as new evidence appears. A readiness habit is to make documentation part of normal alert response, so that incident documentation feels like a natural extension rather than a new burden. This also improves handoffs between shifts, because a clear record prevents repeated work and prevents the loss of key context. For beginners, the key is to see documentation as a response control, not a report, because it controls confusion by preserving the team's shared understanding. When the documentation pattern is practiced in routine work, it holds up during emergencies. Readiness also includes preparing containment and recovery coordination principles, even if you do not specify exact technical steps, because containment choices can create business disruption if handled carelessly. A SOC should know what kinds of actions are available, what systems are safe to isolate, and what approvals are required before disruptive actions are taken. This is where the decision map matters again, because containment requires authority. It is also where dependency knowledge matters, because isolating a system that supports a critical workflow can cause immediate operational failure. A readiness step is to pre-identify the most critical systems and services and to understand what safe containment options exist, such as limiting access rather than shutting down a service. Another step is to plan how to preserve evidence while containing, because aggressive actions can wipe volatile information or alter the timeline. For beginners, it is important to recognize that containment is not purely technical. It is a business decision informed by technical evidence. Readiness prevents chaos by ensuring those decisions are not invented under pressure. A mature readiness mindset also includes understanding that incident response is not only about stopping the attacker, but about returning the organization to trustworthy operation. This is why readiness includes planning for how investigations feed into remediation decisions, such as how to confirm that an identity is safe again, how to confirm that a system is clean, and how to confirm that monitoring is restored. If the team focuses only on immediate containment, it may miss the need to verify integrity and to ensure that the same access path cannot be reused. Readiness also includes understanding that an incident may involve multiple phases, such as initial access, internal movement, and data access, so the team must be prepared to expand scope as evidence appears. This is where having well-enriched telemetry and reliable pivot points matters, because scope expansion depends on being able to connect events across systems quickly. For beginners, the key lesson is that preparation is what enables controlled scope growth, rather than uncontrolled panic where everything is treated as compromised without evidence. Controlled response protects both security and business continuity. Readiness is what makes that control possible. Another readiness step that prevents chaos is practicing the transition from alert handling to incident handling, because the hardest moment is often not the technical investigation but the organizational shift. In routine operations, analysts might handle an alert quietly, document it, and close it, but in an incident, the team must coordinate, escalate, and possibly take disruptive actions. Practicing that transition means knowing what information must be included in an escalation message, knowing which evidence must be preserved, and knowing what early decisions must be made. It also means knowing when to stop doing deep analysis and start coordinating action, because incidents often require parallel work, not a single analyst trying to do everything sequentially. For beginners, it is useful to remember that incident response is a team sport, and readiness is about enabling teamwork with shared procedures and communication. When the transition is practiced, the SOC does not waste time debating whether something is serious enough to treat as an incident. Instead, the team moves through a familiar path, which reduces stress and increases speed. As we conclude, remember that preparing for incident response is a readiness program that makes later response faster, more accurate, and less chaotic, and it begins long before the first major incident appears. Readiness includes clear escalation criteria, a contact and decision map, reliable evidence collection and retention, and strong integrity protections so evidence remains trustworthy. It includes tooling access that works under pressure, communication channels and messaging discipline that prevent confusion, and documentation structures that preserve a shared understanding across shifts. It also includes containment and recovery coordination principles so actions reduce harm without unnecessarily breaking the business or destroying evidence. The deeper point is that incidents are stressful because time is limited and uncertainty is high, and readiness is what reduces both time loss and uncertainty. For exam thinking, the most important takeaway is that effective SOC operations include the ability to transition into structured incident response smoothly, and that transition depends on preparation, not on improvisation. When you can explain readiness as a set of conditions and habits that prevent chaos later, you are demonstrating the operational maturity that this part of the certification is designed to test.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.